When most people hear the name Albert Einstein, they picture a wild-haired genius scribbling equations on a blackboard, a symbol of intelligence, a cultural icon, a caricature, even. But behind the physics and the fame was a man of paradoxes, soft-spoken yet revolutionary, humble yet world-changing, scientific yet deeply philosophical. Albert Einstein was not born a genius. In fact, he spoke slowly as a child and was thought by some to have a learning disability. Born on March 14, 1879, in Ulm, Germany, to a secular Jewish family, his early development was anything but remarkable. His parents, Hermann and Pauline Einstein, were ordinary people. His father ran an electrochemical factory, and his mother was a talented pianist. As a child, Einstein was introspective and curious. He showed early signs of an analytical mind, obsessing over how things worked. A compass given to him at age 5 ignited his fascination with invisible forces. How could the needle move without any visible connection? The mystery stuck with him and would later evolve into a lifelong quest to understand the forces governing the universe. Despite his intellectual potential, school was not a natural fit. Einstein disliked the rigid structure and authoritarian nature of the German education system. He often clashed with teachers and was labeled a troublemaker. Yet outside the classroom, he devoured scientific books, taught himself advanced mathematics, and imagined complex physical concepts through vivid thought experiments, what he would later call Gedanken experiment. By age 16, Einstein was formulating questions that stumped even seasoned scientists. He famously imagined what it would be like to chase a beam of light. Could you ever catch up to it? And if you did, what would you see? These innocent musings would later become the seeds of his most profound theories. After dropping out of school in Germany, Einstein moved to Switzerland, where he completed his education at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic in Zurich. He was not a star student, often skipping lectures and frustrating professors with his unconventional thinking. Yet he excelled in physics and mathematics, graduating in 1900. Despite his degree, Einstein struggled to find academic work. He spent 2 years jobless before securing a position as a technical assistant at the Swiss Patent Office in Bern. This unlikely job became a blessing in disguise. Free from the constraints of academia, Einstein used his spare time to think freely and deeply. The result: one of the most extraordinary bursts of creativity in scientific history. In 1905, often called Einstein's miracle year or Annus Mirabilis, he published 4 groundbreaking papers that reshaped modern physics. He was just 26 years old. The first paper proposed the idea that light could behave not just as a wave, but as discrete particles called quanta, laying the foundation for quantum theory. The second explained Brownian motion, offering evidence for the existence of atoms. The third introduced the special theory of relativity, arguing that time and space were not absolute but relative to the observer. And the fourth, it gave us the most famous equation in history, E equals mc2. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. In 1 year, working from a modest desk in a patent office, Einstein turned the world of physics on its head. But he didn't stop there. While special relativity explained the physics of objects moving at constant speeds, it didn't account for gravity. Einstein believed gravity wasn't a force acting at a distance, as Isaac Newton described it, but rather a distortion of space and time itself. Over the next decade, he refined this idea, and in 1915, he unveiled the general theory of relativity. General relativity proposed that massive objects like stars and planets bend the fabric of space-time, and this curvature is what we perceive as gravity. The theory was elegant, bold, and utterly unproven until 1919, when British astronomer Arthur Eddington led an expedition to photograph a solar eclipse. During the eclipse, starlight passing near the sun was observed to bend, just as Einstein's equations predicted. The findings made front-page headlines around the world. Overnight, Einstein became a global sensation, the scientific equivalent of a rock star. But fame didn't change him. Einstein remained a man of simple tastes and sharp wit. He turned down countless offers for lucrative positions and preferred working alone, walking for hours with a notepad in hand or playing his beloved violin. Though German by birth, Einstein was never a nationalist. A committed pacifist and humanitarian, he advocated for civil rights, disarmament, and international cooperation. When the Nazis rose to power in the 1930s, Einstein, by then a vocal critic of anti-Semitism and militarism, was labeled an enemy of the state. His books were burned. His property was seized. He left Germany for good in 1933 and took up a post at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. There he would remain for the rest of his life, still curious, still questioning, still unsettled. Though Albert Einstein had become the most recognizable scientist on Earth, he never viewed himself as an authority. In fact, he often resisted the role the world assigned him. He remained deeply independent, skeptical of political structures, institutions, and even of his own theories. For Einstein, science was never about power. It was about truth. In Princeton, he worked alone, declining most collaborations. His office was modest, filled with stacks of paper, chalk-covered blackboards, and the quiet hum of deep thought. He often said, "I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious," and that curiosity never faded, not even in his final years. One of Einstein's great frustrations later in life was quantum mechanics. Although he helped launch the field with his work on the photoelectric effect, he disagreed with its interpretation. To Einstein, the probabilistic nature of quantum theory, where outcomes are described by probabilities rather than certainties, was deeply unsettling. He famously clashed with Niels Bohr, one of the fathers of quantum mechanics. While Bohr embraced the uncertainty at the heart of the quantum world, Einstein refused to accept it. God does not play dice with the universe, he insisted. Bohr countered, "Stop telling God what to do." These debates weren't just academic, they revealed a deeper philosophical divide. Einstein believed the universe had an underlying order, a logic that could be uncovered with time. He spent the last decades of his life searching for a unified field theory, a single framework that could unify all the forces of nature. But the solution remained elusive. Meanwhile, the world around him was rapidly changing, and not always for the better. In 1939, as World War II loomed, Einstein was approached by physicist Leo Szilard, who warned that Nazi Germany might be developing an atomic bomb. Though a lifelong pacifist, Einstein agreed to sign a letter to U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt urging the development of similar weapons by the Allies. The letter helped initiate the Manhattan Project, which would go on to create the atomic bomb. Einstein himself did not work on the bomb. He was considered too much of a security risk due to his political views. Yet he would carry guilt over his involvement for the rest of his life. After the war, he became an outspoken critic of nuclear weapons and a vocal advocate for world peace. "The unleashed power of the atom has changed everything," he said, "except our way of thinking." Einstein's moral compass was as firm as his scientific one. He was a passionate supporter of civil rights in the United States and spoke out against segregation and racism. He corresponded with Louis B. Du Bois, denounced lynching, and even offered to testify in Du Bois' defense when the civil rights leader was indicted. He refused to be silent, even when it made him unpopular. He called nationalism an infantile disease and was critical of both American McCarthyism and Soviet totalitarianism. He once said, "Blind belief in authority is the greatest enemy of truth." But for all his fame, Einstein led a solitary personal life. His first marriage to Mileva Merrick, also a physicist, was troubled and ended in divorce. Their correspondence reveals a complex relationship marked by shared intellect and growing emotional distance. They had 3 children, including their son Edward, who suffered from mental illness and spent much of his life in psychiatric care. Einstein later married his cousin, Elsa Lowenthal, who helped manage his affairs and provide stability as his fame grew. Still, Einstein was often emotionally distant, absorbed in thought, and uneasy with the spotlight. He found solace in music, especially Mozart and Bach, often saying that he thought in music, dreamed in music, and saw his life in terms of musical structures. Despite, or perhaps because of, his legendary status, Einstein remained deeply humble. He shunned wealth, turned down political office, and even declined the presidency of Israel in 1952, calling himself unqualified. He believed his identity was not tied to nationality or power, but to humanity itself. "I am by heritage a Jew," he said, "by citizenship a Swiss, and by makeup a human being." Einstein died on April 18, 1955, at the age of 76, from an abdominal aneurysm. On his deathbed, he muttered a few final words in German, but the attending nurse did not understand the language, and the words were lost forever. Fitting, perhaps, that a man who had unraveled so many mysteries left one final mystery behind. His brain was removed during autopsy by Dr. Thomas Stoltz Harvey, who hoped to study the anatomy of genius. Pieces of it were preserved, photographed, and distributed to researchers, a controversial act that Einstein had not consented to, but one that highlighted society's obsession with decoding his brilliance. Today, Albert Einstein's legacy lives far beyond the pages of physics textbooks. His name has become shorthand for genius. His face, with the unruly hair, deep-set eyes, and wry smile, is instantly recognizable across the globe. But his true impact lies not in celebrity, but in transformation. He revolutionized our understanding of time, space, energy, and gravity. He gave us GPS, lasers, nuclear energy, and theoretical foundations that still guide scientific research today. But more than that, he gave us a model of curiosity-driven inquiry, untainted by ego or ambition. Einstein believed that wonder was the starting point of all discovery, that imagination mattered just as much as knowledge, that science should serve humanity, not dominate it. He reminded the world that the universe is knowable, but also poetic, that equations could describe the motion of planets, but never the complexity of love, fear, or hope. He once said, "The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. It is the source of all true art and science." And maybe, just maybe, that's why Einstein continues to inspire us, not just because he was smart, but because he was deeply human. He showed us that it's okay to question everything, that it's noble to think differently, that the universe is full of secrets waiting for a mind brave enough to ask, "What if?"